talking with Roger Bunton from Creuse North, who is one of the first members inducted into the Michigan High School Lacrosse Coaches Hall of Fame. First of all, thank you for talking to us.
You're welcome.
And I haven't had a chance to spend much time talking with you before, and this is a real treat for me. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the time.
My pleasure.
I guess the easiest part, and I've said this almost in every interview the last 6 or 7, is we kind of start from the beginning. And I guess for you, it starts at Ohio University.
Yes.
And maybe tell us a little bit about your background and where you come from. You come from Cincinnati.
Right. I actually was born in Birmingham, Alabama, but my parents knew that I was going to be a pain, so they brought the whole family up to Cincinnati, Ohio. And by doing that, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. Went to high school at Hughes High School in Cincinnati, which is right across the street from University of Cincinnati. And so I played football and basketball and ran track in high school. After that, I ended up attending Ohio University, so that was my first move away from home and being away from home for any period of time.
Now, you're a long-time teacher. You spent 30 years at Creuse North as a teacher and retired from there.
Yes.
And did you know from early age you wanted to be an educator?
Actually, I did. I had an experience in the 9th grade, whereas I took a shop class, and toward the end of the school year, my project wasn't finished, and I did not want to fail. So the teacher consented to let me come in after school, and he would work with me to get the project finished. But he said, quite honestly, that if I didn't finish the project, I would not pass, but he would spend time with me or give me the opportunity to come in after school and work on the project. And in doing that, actually I began to find out that teachers are really real people. They're not just mechanical things that stand in front of you and give you directions and point you. And by that period of time that I spent there, I decided that if he could take that time and salvage my career, because if I failed, I would just not have been happy, and I'd have been very, very disappointed and all that, and probably have a hard time explaining that to my parents as well. So if I could do that to someone else, so it's kind of like passing it forward. So that was my inspiration, and I had opportunities. Even when I was in college at Ohio University, our industrial arts program was in the same building as the engineering, and for whatever reason, a couple of the engineering professors tried to steal me from the industrial arts area, and I just, the offers were good, but I knew what I wanted to be. I did not want to be an engineer. I wanted to be a teacher.
Mom and Dad tough?
Mom and Dad were tough. My dad was the toughest, but my mother dealt discipline with compassion. Dad dealt it with an iron fist.
I think
well, not a real fist, okay? But
no, I think that's the age. I had the same father.
Yeah.
So yeah. I get that part. But having that kind of awakening in the 9th grade is pretty beneficial, I would think.
Well, it is, and I think I would love to see kids today start to think about what happened in their life that would be a factor as to what they want to do. If you went to the hospital and somebody, a nurse or a doctor, actually treated you well, did well, fixed you up, you might want to say, hey, maybe I want to do that for somebody else. Maybe I want to be a doctor, a nurse, emergency response person, something along that line. So my intent, even in teaching, is to expose young people to as many things as I possibly can.
Was your humanity sort of born at home with Mom and Dad, or is it just something that came, or is it the way the household was?
It's pretty much born. Well, I was one of 4, and so you had to learn to get along anyway. But yeah, it was a thing that came with the household. My mother wanted to be a teacher, and you have to go back because they were born in 1916. So as time went by, they didn't have the availability to go to colleges the way I did and the way they are now. So as she went for a couple of years to get an associate degree so she could teach, then of course she was married and had kids, and then we moved away, and so she gave up her whole avenue. But I didn't. I stayed, with my idea to go on. My sister also became a teacher, so I guess that's part of the inspiration that came from my mother and from the family.
What did you teach?
I taught. Oh wow. I taught in what's called industrial arts at the beginning, and then things just exploded from there. I ended up teaching photography, videography. I taught drafting. I taught what we called technology education. I think that's pretty much
A
most
lot
of
of vocational kinds of
it. Yes,
process.
yes, yes.
That's. Did you have an interest in those things, or were you trained in those things professionally?
Oh yeah. Well, in college, in my undergrad school, we had a area that was it was printing, graphic arts, I think they called it, and so they introduced me to photography at that time, and I just thought that was the sweetest thing in the world. So and we didn't have that when I got my job at Creuse. So I started a photography club, and so kids were interested in it, and the club grew and grew and grew, and so eventually they said, well, we might as well make this well, so I was actually sharing the dark room with the newspaper department, and so the newspaper department said, he's taking up too much of my time. He's using up all our chemicals and things, so he should have his own place, and so they did. They actually built a dark room for me.
And we should point out to the younger version that darkroom was a place where you used to have to actually develop your prints, unlike now where you just have to drop them into a computer.
Exactly.
You used to have to be, I say that as an old newspaper guy, so I understand.
Well, you know what? I guess that's the thing that most people don't realize, that all of that started way back when, even with the plates that they used to have to make in order to do printing. So, and I taught them the history of photography as well, so that they understood where it came from. And even some of my students that I keep in contact with, they like black and white even more so than color. And so they do shoot and transpose back to black and white, even some of the color that they shoot.
Early part of my career, I actually had a chance to interview Ansel Adams, which was a thrill, to say the least.
Absolutely.
And talked a lot about color and light and all the other processes that he goes through. And he had just finished a series up in the Sierras, and showed some pictures.
I remember that.
He did a lot of photography up in that part of the world. But I believe that photographers are born, and guys who take pictures are trained.
Yes.
And he's just one of those guys that can walk into a room. I was fortunate enough to work with a guy at our newspaper in California that you asked him to do something, and he would wait till the last second, and you would always get this picture that was beyond belief. Mm-hmm. And you'd always push him for deadline because you were always afraid that he wasn't going to get the picture. Yeah. And then bam, here, you had 12 guys on the staff as photographers, but he would always get the picture. He'd always be the award winner. Yeah. And that's just, I think that's God-given. Yeah,
absolutely.
So you're kind of left brain more than right brain, then, I would think, from a vocational standpoint.
I guess, who knows? Yeah. I know. I'm not sure which side of my brain actually works.
Did you always, when you had this experience in the 9th grade with the shop teacher, is that kind of pushed you in that direction, or was this something you just loved to do?
No, that pushed me in that direction. At that time, I was just like most of the young people today, even, and back then, is that I had no idea why I even was going to school. School was required, but why am I doing this? Why? And then as time went by, I did sort of know that. Well, after that experience, I knew at that point that that's what I want to do. I want to work with kids. I want to see if I can make a difference in their life, to bring them to a point where they can discover. And some of the students I had, actually, I had one student that became a world-renowned photographer. And so, and I've had some national, two national Scholastic Award winners in photography. So those are the kind of things that made me happy. I went into that, but I knew that I wanted to teach. I knew that I wanted to influence the future of a young person.
That's cool. Ohio University, Cincinnati, Ohio University. You get your undergraduate, and now you come out of Ohio University, and I suppose you're looking for jobs.
Yes, I was looking for jobs. I had an opportunity. in my home city, which is what I really wanted to do. I wanted to teach right in Cincinnati, in fact, in the neighborhood of Avondale. But what ended up happening is that they were very late in getting me any information at all. Then they said that my opportunity was to teach at one school, use my lunch time to drive to the other school and teach the second half of the day at the other school. And also talk to Creuse, who said, "Oh, well, we'll hire you and we'll give you a room, and if there's anything that you want in that room, we'll provide it for you." And I said to myself, tough decision. I think I'm going to Michigan.
Did you know anything about Detroit before you?
Not really. I mean, you follow Detroit, and if you're sports minded, you follow the Detroit Lions, you follow, Detroit teams. Right. If you are, anything, if you know about cars, that they were a car manufacturing center. But other than that, no, I didn't. I didn't have any clue as to, what I was getting into. And when I first got here, and I was hired also as the assistant football coach, so I got here early because football usually starts earlier than regular school, and I didn't have any place to live, so I had to live out of the YMCA down in Detroit and drive out to Mount Clemens to do the coaching thing until I found a place out here in the area.
Well, when you got here, was it what you thought?
I had no idea what it would be. I just knew that I was here to work with kids,
right.
And any way that I could, improve a kid's life, that's what I was here for. So I didn't have any preconceived ideas.
You started then coaching football right off the bat?
Yes.
Now the interesting connection to this, to lacrosse, and that's I kind of want to make that sort of right-hand turn, is that you went to Ohio University. Don Lutz taught at Creuse, also an Ohio University grad. Lots of people probably would have made and still make the connection that probably you two knew each other in high school. Or, excuse me, in college.
In college, nope.
Didn't know each other.
Did not. He, I think he graduated about the same time I did, as a matter of fact, but we did not know each other.
Well, when you met Don for the first time at Creuse High School, I'm assuming that's the case, right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
two Ohio University guys, that's got to be a little bit of a...
Oh, it was wonderful. Except that, I said, dang, you went there and I didn't know you. But then the last 2 years, I was pretty much focused on getting the degree, getting out, getting my career started. So the first 2 years were more casual, and my grades showed it, but more casual, and I mostly was targeted with the football and basketball. Well, basketball only lasted about a month and a half, and I don't know if I was told or I just assumed that if I didn't get my grades right, I wouldn't be playing either. I'd be home. And I knew some guys that did just that their freshman year, even that we had one really great football player. He was a fullback, and he was like a locomotive, and he didn't make it through that year. I mean, he finished that year, but he flunked right out. So I didn't want to be one of those that was really good at my skill, but I didn't do the homework and didn't do the grades, and then I'm back at home.
Your connection to Don was football first at Creuse.
Football first.
You were the JV head coach?
Yes.
And he was your assistant?
Yes.
Okay. So he's only been teaching there a couple years as well then. So you guys are both young guys.
Well, actually, he came in 2 years because I had another assistant coach for 2 years, and then he came in. So when he did come in, he came in under me, and that's when we got that thing started.
Well, then let's take us from Creuse. Let's take us to that very first conversation. Since lacrosse was never a part of your previous landscape, now we're going to have a conversation about lacrosse. How did that first conversation come up with him?
Well, it was the fact that, again, we had a situation where we realized our kids got fat and lazy. That's not a nice way to say it. Out of physical conditioning over the period of time from the end of football season, if they didn't play basketball, which still is not a real close skill set relating to football. So we knew that they were going to be idle from football season all the way up to August when football starts again. And so, we said, it's a disservice to let these kids, from all of the conditioning and shape that they were in at the end of football season, to let it all go to pot and then come up again and try to retrain them and recondition them in the fall. So our idea was to create a program that would keep them in shape. And I know that some of the football coaches now just want you to be a football player and nothing else. So you're in the weight room from the October, November, all the way through to September again when you start August when you start to go over again. But I was not a proponent of that kind of conditioning. I would think that a variety would be a better choice. So I thought that football and lacrosse, and at that time lacrosse was pretty physical. You did do some serious hitting in the game, and so that I thought lent itself to football as well.
Was Don a good teacher of the sport? I'm assuming he had to teach
Oh,
you the basic stuff.
Absolutely. Don was really good with it. Patient man, but demanding. He had it. This is what we're doing, and that's what we're going to do. And if you don't like it, hit the road. But this is the way it works. But we had an amazingly good group of kids when this program started.
The interesting question I asked Don at the time, and you kind of alluded in a pre-interview that maybe a little bit of the story that I'm about to ask is slightly different. I asked Don the question, you're developing a lacrosse program with no opponents. Now all of a sudden you have this program, but who do you play? And I asked him the question, did you think about who you were going to play? And he kind of said, well, not really. And you said maybe there was a little more to that conversation.
Well, I knew that, first of all, to teach them was the issue at the beginning, and then to start booking programs to play. We would play JV, college JV teams, or I don't know what they call them. Anyway, they're B teams, and we would play. We would go out of state a lot, and I thought that was a very unique thing for us, because in traveling out of state, we weren't under the guidelines of the Michigan High School Athletic Association, so we could travel out of the state and play teams in Ohio, in Illinois, and so by doing that, the kids almost kind of lived together, and that the bond that they instituted doing that was one that lasted lifetimes. So. Yeah, we didn't know that we had teams to play. Wayne State had a team, and they would come out and scrimmage us from time to time, just to give us because scrimmaging among yourselves, I know the weak guys on the JV or on the second team, and they know the weak guys on the first team. So it kind of balanced it out, and everything was just the same old, same old. But when you get somebody else out there, anybody that knew enough about lacrosse to play, we would try to get them to come in and help us out and scrimmage against us, and that's how, in fact, I started to learn more about the game, because I actually participated on the other guys' team, so that when our kids came to play, I'm playing against our own kids, and then that way, of course, it took a while for me to develop the skills, stick handling, and those sticks in those days were, it's the catgut sticks, so. Those were a little bit more difficult to handle than these things that kids are playing with now.
I grew up with those sticks, so I know more than you know about being able to handle those sticks.
Yeah.
The extraordinary part, I know you weren't an administrator, but could you imagine being an advisor at your high school, saying, by the way, my high school team's now going to go play a sport against men in some cases, and by the way, I'm going to maybe compete with the other team and play as an adult, just because we don't have enough bodies. Yeah. If you were to present that to an athletic director today, you get laughed out of the building.
Absolutely.
So sometimes at the beginning you don't know, you push forward to the best part, but I think those are the great stories.
Well, you do what you think is best for yourself and for the program, and sometimes after doing that, you might shake your head and say, was that really a good idea? We never had the idea of trying to harm or hurt any of the kids that we played against, and we made sure that even the teams, if we had somebody coming in from another area to play, and they had older kids or adults on them, we made sure that we understand this is just a game. Now, we did go to play Hillsdale. And
Just no college.
yes, that was it was their B team,
Right.
but not their first team, their second team. We went and played them, and there was this gentleman on the team that had pretty much signed a pro contract. He was really a big guy, strong guy, but he was one of those guys that hated to lose, and we were beating them. And he started aiming at our kids and trying to take them out. And I was ready to intervene, but our kids took care of it because they knew what he was trying to do, and they made him look stupid. And he would come and try to plow him, and we'd roll off of him. And if he was coming at you, get rid of the ball. Okay, well, you can't hit me now because I don't have the ball. So that was an experience that I said that at that time, I guess that we just had a very special group of kids, and they were very intelligent, and they took care of the situation themselves.
The meat squad approach to lacrosse is always fun to watch, and football players come out and think they can just bang on people.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about lacrosse, you know it's a speed and skill sport.
Exactly.
And little guys, it's one of the few sports left that little guys can still be dominant.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be 6'5". It helps to be 6'5",
Yeah.
but if you're not, you still have a chance to support that. And the frustration of football players and some of the guys who think they're going to come out and do the meat squad thing is always fun to watch because they realize real quick that football coaches tell me all the time, and I'm a football coach, but football coaches tell me all the time how tough their kids are. I said, come out and play my sport where it's the same physicality, except I got a 6-foot stick can hit you.
Yes.
I said, so you think you're tough? Doesn't last very long, and I think that's true. Did this sport to you played basketball, football, you coach those sports. Did this one get in the heart maybe more than the other sports? And I say that because there's always this conversation with the spirit of the game, and we sort of get lost in the sort. Did lacrosse happen to you, or was this just another sport to you?
No.
Coach?
Lacrosse got deep into my soul, my blood. Lacrosse was.
Why?
Why? I'm not altogether sure, to be honest with you. Why does the spirit hit you? I mean,
Right.
that's and I think one of the things that kind of helped me a bit is that lacrosse actually has a religious background to it, and the concepts of going from one village to the other village, and you're battling for the dominance over one of the two villages is how lacrosse really back in the day got started, with the American Indians. And so I guess that spiritual realm there even, and there's a spiritual realm even with the guys that love it today, that it's not all just brutal and attack and that kind of thing. There's a lot of history to this sport that overcomes or goes beyond the concepts of basketball or football and that kind of thing. So it just got into my blood. If I had better health conditions right now, I'd run back out and say, "Hey, Don, let's do some more coaching." Don is still going to try to coach. I know that my limitations have kind of gotten to me here.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's hard to explain. It is. You don't know why. And I wonder sometimes if the younger guys playing the sport, even kids playing for me, I sometimes wonder if they appreciate that. You try to introduce them to it. Mm-hmm. I just don't know that, and that may be an age thing. It just as they get older, they really appreciate where they've come from and where they're headed. I don't think that's a complete loss of process, but it is what it is. Now, how long were you at Lance Creuse as a lacrosse coach before you moved? How many seasons?
I don't know. At Lance Creuse, till '76. So when they built the new high school, that's when I moved to the new high school, and that's when we started a program at the new high school, and that would be in '76. So we started, I think, in '67 or '68. I hate to tell you, I'm getting a little old. I can't remember what those dates were.
Okay,
but
so
anyway, back
you were
in
with Don for a while, and then there's a teaching job opening, I'm assuming, at Lance Creuse North.
Right. Well, they opened the building.
Okay.
So,
what made you move? Is I guess the question.
Okay. fact that they had a brand new high school, brand new classrooms, and air conditioned where the other one wasn't. Yeah, there was a lot of things that said, I'm going to go to the other school.
Practical.
And I was going to say, I'm just going to go and teach. I'm not going to do the coaching thing. And then I had a few kids that were involved in the program at the other school, and then when they split the school, of course, they had to split some of the students. And these guys kept coming to me and saying, "Hey, we want to do a lacrosse program. We want to do a lacrosse program." I'm thinking, do I really want to do that? That's going to be a lot of work. And then I said, if you can go and get some kids, you recruit the kids, I'll coach it. And I think it was like 3 or 4 days later, he came, "Okay, we got 20. I'm thinking, what? 20? And so I said, okay, I got to keep my word. So I went on and set up the program, and we started doing our thing then.
The idea that you had some kids in place where you weren't starting absolutely from zero.
Right. Some of the kids that were in the program at L'Anse Creuse Central, they came up to L'Anse Creuse North, and so there wasn't a lot of them. Maybe 6 or 7 at the.
That's still at least a catalyst.
Right. That was a catalyst, and they recruited. And then what generally happened in the spring of the year is that spring of the year. Yeah, spring of the year. What generally happen with the spring of the year is that they get cut from baseball. And some of them even find out that track is not their thing. They either get cut or they drop out. And so they were looking for an alternative to go to. And so some of these kids decided that lacrosse would be one of those things that they would like to try. So they would come and try. And of course, I probably had more ego than sense, because I started the program as a varsity program as opposed to working it up like normal people do. But there was only 4 other teams in the league anyway, so I figured, why not just jump right in? And so it got to be that the battle between L'Anse Creuse and L'Anse Creuse North was the highlight of our season, because when we went up against Cranbrook or Detroit Country Day or who was the rest? Anyway, the other major schools, we didn't have a chance against them, and we knew it.
How long did you coach the L'Anse team, L'Anse Creuse North team?
Up from '76 all the way through 2000.
Oh, it's a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That is a long time. We started playing L'Anse Creuse when I was at Waterford before I went to St. Mary's. We started playing. When I was that second wave coming in with the old Mhslca. Mm-hmm. And my entry into it was along the lines that we were like 60 teams strong in those days. Mm-hmm. So it was Mike Costello at Plymouth, and Mark Mealy out in Grand Rapids, and Dave Moore at Matawan. And we started to get a group together because we were not getting any opportunity from the hierarchy, because there was that Division 1 and 2, and then there was us.
Yeah.
And we had no representation on the statewide board for the Mhslca, even though we represented 80% of the kids. From that standpoint. So you were actually one of those original guys. So Gene Riley and all, that's the group that you competed against. Mm-hmm. I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question. Being an Afro-American in a sport that was considered prep in those days, did color ever enter into it for you as a sport?
I don't think so.
That's extraordinary.
If it did, it was. I'm going to be honest with you. Okay, I was the first black African American male teacher in the L'Anse Creuse school system. So being a pioneer color-wise was not new to me. Okay. So I guess I really didn't pay attention to it, but I was accepted, I thought, by everybody fine. I mean, nobody had any. They'd like to beat me sometimes, but that's okay. That's the game.
That didn't change anything.
But other than that, no. There was no. In fact, I guess I've even had coaches say that they built some of the things that they instituted in their program from watching me, and I had that much respect. I think that. I was coach of the year for Mhslca, whatever. And that was a year that I won absolutely no games. And so when they made that announcement, I didn't even think that I heard that right. And then somebody nudged me. And then they said,
"Go get your trophy."
that the reason is you took the field every day with the intent to try to win, even though you knew you were outnumbered and outmanned, but your kids competed every time they hit the field.
That is such a cool point. We give the coach of the year trophy to the guy who wins the most, not necessarily the guy that's done the best coaching job. And I know that's a subjective subject.
Yeah.
But that's an extraordinary story because it really represents the heart of the process,
The spirit of the game.
and we go back to that. If we were talking track, basketball, other sports that we both coached, I'm guessing that if I asked that same question in an all-white world, that would be a different answer to that. So it's extraordinary to me that it never became. I think sports is the great limiter.
Yeah.
Either you can or you can't. It doesn't. You can be checkered. It doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
If you're an idiot, you're an idiot. And if you're nice, you're nice. Right?
Yeah.
You can't coach stupid and
Yeah.
all the other things that go with it. So I think that's kind of important to understand.
Yeah.
In the time that you were at Creuse North, any anecdotes of stories of kids, of things that may stick out in your mind? Probably plenty of them, right?
Oh, there were a great number of them. The one thing that I did take from some of the programs that did some traveling is that I took a group of kids. Actually, I did 3 trips like that, now that I think of it. But the first trip I took was the one that was most meaningful. We went to Florida, and we practiced during spring break in Florida. At the same time, we went to the Disney and the theme parks, et cetera, et cetera. There was a place, I think they call it, I'm thinking it's Total Sports, but it's some kind of sports center that was away from Orlando. And we went there, and we had practices, and the guys got a chance to watch a lacrosse game between 2 club sports. And one of the things that impressed them the most in that case was that they watched the game of what are the adult lacrosse teams, and the guy was like, one team was about 4 goals behind, and the guy came to the sidelines, and our kids are standing there because they want to know about this. And the guy said, "Okay, we got them where we want them now." And I'm thinking, and they're thinking, what is this guy talking about? You're 4 or 5 goals down, and you got them where you want them. So they came out that 4th quarter, and they beat the team that they were playing. And I said to myself, now that is a lesson that you do not have to give up just because you're down. You can get up from being down. So they learned a lesson at that. Of course, they learned a lesson too to not lay around in the sun because they all got sunburned. But that was an experience, and the kinds of things that we've done and things like that. And again, I took a couple of other groups. When we got back from that trip, by the way, we beat a team in our very first game that beat us by 5 goals the year before. But when we came back, our kids were in shape, they were focused, and they outplayed a team that should probably have beaten us.
What have you learned from lacrosse that you used in the classroom?
Actually, I guess you could probably reverse that and say, what did I learn in the classroom that helped in lacrosse? But I think the biggest thing is we have rules, we have direction. You follow the rules, you follow the direction, you follow what you're being told to do, you cooperate. In the classroom, you don't go off on a tangent all by yourself. You cooperate, you work together. In the sport of lacrosse, you don't go off. You're not an island. You are a part of a group, and the whole group works together. And so your commitment should be to the entire group. It's not your own stats that you're trying to pad. It's not your own direction you want to take. You want to take the direction that the team takes.
Would your former players tell me you were a taskmaster or you were a coach's coach? How would they describe you?
That's a good question. I have no idea. I never thought about it, to be honest with you. I thought about it this way. I think that they like me because they try to stay in touch with me over the years and things like that. So I don't think that what I said or did was molding or anything like that. I just think that they knew that even the team that didn't win a game that year, I mean, we were a tight group. The kids, they played their hearts out because that's what we expected, and that's what you do. I mean, who was it? Waverly. We played our last game, and I told them, look, guys, and I know that Waverly is #1 in the state, and we haven't won a game all year. So our goal will be to outscore them in at least one quarter of all 4 of the quarters we played. And so they went out there with the intent and idea of doing so, and we did tie them in the 4th quarter because they kind of put all their good guys out and put guys in that were less of skillful. But that, to me, that was the thing that I've always tried to preach to our kids or teach our kids, is that the 100% effort is all you can get. I mean, if it's good enough to win, then it's good, great. If it's not good enough to win, you've given it your best, and you have nothing to apologize about.
When you don't win a game in a season versus maybe a 500 season or even a winning season, do you coach any different?
No. Every coach, every time we hit the field, we do it the same way. And if you don't have a great deal of talent, you try to adjust some things, obviously, but you try to hit the field with the best effort you have. And that's all I expected out of. If that best effort was good enough to win, then that's great. If that best effort was not good enough to win, then that's also great because you gave it your best.
You really are a teacher first, aren't you?
I guess so.
No, I think it's extraordinary because you can just see as you're talking about your philosophy, being a teacher first is really all that matters. Because if they don't get it, what's the point?
Yeah.
I say it as a tremendous compliment. I mean, I hope you understand
I appreciate
that.
it, yeah.
You were coming at the end of your career. You said you retired in 2000. 2005 is when the Mhsca took over. So those conversations were started in the late 90s about maybe going to the Mhsca. Do you remember any of those conversations you guys had with coaches?
The only thing I remember in somewhat conflict is that how do we deal with these teams that go out of state and play across country and Maryland and Ohio and various places that they travel and play, and then we don't get that opportunity to do those kind of things, and they start earlier and been able to do those kind of things. So those are the kind of comments that
equity.
Yeah, equity that's it in a word. That's it. But again, it has nothing to do with me because I still want to make my kids the best I can, and whatever we do after that is okay.
You made a comment earlier about travel and going different places. Mm-hmm. An athletic director told me once that I wasn't a travel director. I was not a travel agent. That wasn't my job. And I tried to point out to him that as much as we would travel, I said sometimes kids literally never got out of the county.
That's right.
And to go to Grand Rapids was to go to the Ford Museum or to do something on a trip that was not necessarily extraordinary to me, but might have been extraordinary to them. If the classroom doesn't extend beyond the field or beyond the classroom, what's the point?
Exactly.
And I think that was something, and I'd say that to him and he'd shut up because there was no comeback.
Yes.
Because you're offering something that he doesn't have.
That's right.
And if I'm willing to take the risk, and I understood the liability. He was more interested in liability than he was anything else.
Yeah.
Well, once in a while, people fall down. Sometimes people get hurt, but we never had any of that problems. Sometimes you're supposed to do those things.
Yeah.
From that standpoint. You've watched the game over the last few years? Have you kept up with the game?
Not as much as in the last couple of years, not so much. But prior to that, I pretty close to the game.
What do you think when you were starting to that late '90s up to what do you see differences now from what even in the last few years of what you saw then?
Wow,
the explosion is there, but the numbers tell us since 2014 the sport's not growing like it was.
Well, I don't know if it's not growing like it was. The thing that I notice is that it has grown tremendously from the 4 and then the 5, and then the 6 that I knew it way back when to what it is now. So that to me is a tremendous explosion. And I think that perhaps the reason that it's not growing anymore is that I think the money is tightening up. The school of choice doesn't bring the community close together like it used to. And so if you have a kid that's living way over there and he's playing over here, he's not really going to be that interested in trying to build another program in the area. I don't know. To me, I think that there's some growth yet to come, but I think that all of the sports have pretty much come to a point where there's less and less growth.
L'Anse Creuse was always a good program in the beginning. L'Anse Creuse North had some really good years under you.
Mm-hmm.
They have, like a lot of programs, as we're now at 139 teams statewide. There's some resurgence locally because you've got some travel programs. Was there a lot of travel programs late? Not like there was.
No.
Not like there is now.
No, not like there is now, and that's probably another aspect of the game, because the kids can play during the summer and get some travel games and that kind of thing that might they can wear themselves out. I guess I'm also one of those proponents of the fact that play a different variety of sports. Don't wear yourself out in one sport, even if it's football. Don't make football your life. Do some other things that broaden your horizon.
Somebody said recently in one of these interviews that we talk about this being still a new sport, and they pointed out that it's been around for 50 years. The educational part, what we were talking about, then the question was, are we doing a good enough job as coaches selling the sport? Because if we're thinking ourselves as being new after 50 years, I'm not sure we're on the right page, because the fact is we're not new anymore.
No.
We're one of the old guys.
Yes.
There's been 12 more sports added to the agenda for the High School Athletic Association.
Yeah.
Bowling being the recent one, and now with esports with computers.
Oh wow! Forgot that one.
But I think when we have this mindset that we're the new guy on the block, we're not. We've been around a long time.
Very long time. Yes.
And I think that's something that's.
I don't know how to address that with the fact that we need to just make ourselves not label ourselves as the new guys or old guys. Just we're the good guys, and we have a sport that offers things that other sports don't offer, and if we can continue to convince our kids. We just had Chippewa Valley and Dakota. I think they have a merged team they just started, and I think that we will continue to grow in smaller increments. Who else was it? Some other group that was talking about new programs. Okay, I'll skip that part.
Well, there's I think 5 or 6 new programs coming online this year.
Okay.
The division on some of those. Livonia's got a brand new program that they're starting from scratch. We've got a lot of young coaches that are moving into the sport, and we could have a long conversation about the connection between the guys that are 20 and the guys that are 60. And I think there's a highway there that's got to be explored. I'm not sure that they're getting the knowledge. I'm involved in the collegiate women's game, and young ladies are failing at a high rate at colleges, not because they're not good coaches, but they never learn the sport. They never serve their mentorship to understand the process. And I've always said it takes 10 years to become a decent head coach, just to learn the process. So it's not about they know how to make a defensive change. It's that they made one of the regents who gives lots of money to the school angry because of something they said or because they didn't teach them, just the protocol of politics.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be more mentoring process. And I think we've lost that a little bit. That was a little more, Don was the lacrosse coach because he understood that.
Yeah.
But now you see, he's got the white hair now and he's got the whole thing going. And I think it's phenomenal. But you guys gave us the foundation to allow us to build the kind of sport that you now see. And I think that's something important that you guys recognize that we know that.
Well, I appreciate that. And the thing is that to see the sport grow even to where it has grown to now is a compliment to Don and to anybody else that started early.
You?
Yeah, myself, and so Mike Jolly, and just all the young guys the old guys, I guess they're now, but the old guys that started the programs back in the day and started it with dignity and pride. And I think I would always want to have all of our coaches, no matter what age they are, to have the dignity of the sport foremost in their minds. Is okay, you want to win, and everybody should want to win, but winning is not predominant over the dignity of the sport and keeping the sport in the best light it can possibly be.
The term gentleman comes to mind when I'm thinking about this conversation. You're a true gentleman. And I'm not saying that lightly, and I'm not blowing smoke, as it were. I just think everything I've heard, this is the first time I've had a chance to sit down and talk with you. You're a true gentleman, have meant a tremendous amount to the sport. And for this almost old guys, I'm a little younger than you.
Yes.
And still got both feet in the field, as it were. I really appreciate all that you've done for lacrosse, and I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity to talk. And, anytime, Don and I can get on the phone and talk, and we start talking about things back in the day in the sport itself and all of that. So, every time I get a chance to talk about lacrosse, I enjoy it. It brings joy to my heart and a smile to my face.
Thank you much.
Appreciate it.